Thanks for tuning into another edition of the Time with Fred podcast. This is a podcast that challenges paradigms and mindsets that hold us back. My guest today is a real estate consultant and founder of the Patrick Group, a premier real estate firm in Las Vegas. With over 100 million sold since 2013, he was named in the top 1% for all Las Vegas realtors and the number one top producer for the Signature Real Estate Group. Previously, he owned 3 successful businesses and spent 15 satisfying years in sales, marketing, and customer service. But as is the case of most of my guests on this podcast, he didn't just get here. He was fired, he was robbed, he was divorced, and with 2 businesses down the drain, was stuck on a one-way street of screw-ups and failures. The life he was leading wasn't what he wanted, but sometimes not getting what you want is exactly what you need. This is a Time with Fred podcast.
It's timely, it's insightful, it's motivating, it's empowering. It's Time with Fred, your inspirational broadcast with host Fred Gaddy.
My guest today is Chris Patrick, and he's here to tell us how it all happened. Chris, thank you for coming on the podcast today.
Fred, how are you? Thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure and an honor to be on your show.
The pleasure is all mine. Chris, as I said in the introduction, there are often times when guests come on the show, it's all the great accolades and all the wonderful things, the accomplishments, which is great. There's nothing really wrong with that. But behind those stars, as I like to call them, they're very powerful stories like yourself. Can you take us back, Chris, a little bit? I'm not sure how far back you want to go, but just give us a little background of how you came to be where you are today.
Yeah, I guess that is a long story, Fred. I've had a life that's been full of adversity and a lot of struggles, and some might say some terrible things. And it's been a long journey and a bumpy road. But the path to success is oftentimes a bumpy road down a slippery slope. And so, I wanted to take an opportunity and. After many years of thinking about it, my wife and I got to talking and we said, man, your life has been so crazy and so many ups and downs. And look where you are now. You should write a book about this. I think it would help a lot of people. And so that's kind of where the idea was born, to write a book to show people that no matter how bad life has been treating you up till now, it's never too late to turn things around. And you really can have pretty much anything you want in this life.
And you write this very powerfully, Chris, in your book, Disasters to Dreams. Can you kind of share some of those disasters, as you like to call them, that you encountered in life and how it led you to, I guess, dreamland, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, there's been times where, I've lived in cars on a couple of different occasions. I've been homeless. I've taken food stamps from the government. I've lived on a bag of potatoes for weeks at a time. You'd be surprised how many different ways you can cook a potato. But if that's all you're eating, you'll figure it out, right? I've been fired 3 times in a row from jobs. I've been divorced, held up at gunpoint at one of my jobs. Wow. That was pretty traumatizing. And probably one of the biggest, things of all, I had an incident happen when I was 12 years old. I was actually wrongfully accused of a sex crime. And I was expelled from school, arrested, found guilty in the court of public opinion. And this is back when newspapers were still a thing. So, the story was in the newspaper and everything else. Lost all of my friends, save one. And, at such an age where, you're very impressionable at that time, 12 years old. It was very devastating. It was a very dark period of my life, but just like a lot of things, I dug through that, pulled that skeleton out of the closet and, found some things that were good from that, what good could have come from something like that, but I found some things that changed me, that changed the way I am. It made me more, it made me question things, why is that, which I have found to be beneficial in business and, just in life, it's made me more assertive and, more of a D personality than I have been before. So, and then you can even go back to, the the very early years. I had a pretty rocky early childhood. I had an abusive father. He left us a couple of times, when I was, 2 years old, and then again at 3.5. So yeah, it's been a ride, but again, wanting to bring all the skeletons out of the closet and dig through the dirt to find the diamonds, so to speak, has really helped me out a lot. And I wanted to share some of those stories as an example to show people that yes, I've gone through some bad things, but been able to make it out alive and thriving, and you can do the same,
Yeah.
right? So that's kind of why I wanted to bring those things to light.
Chris, this is powerful on a number of fronts. Not only did you allow the disasters that you went through, the challenges that you went through in life, Chris, to hold you down, you made that decision to make something better out of life. But then you also decided to publicize that, right? To make that public. You wrote a book, and sometimes when people are living, the life as we know it, they don't open up, right? Because they don't want to let people into their space, so to speak, or allow themselves to be vulnerable. My question for you, or the first question rather, is one: why didn't you? What was it that made you, Chris, want to make the most out of life, right? Because for a lot of people, it'd be for a lot of people who go through this, they either allow themselves to stay stuck where they are, because you had very, very valid reasons to stay where you were, right? I mean, on food stamps and all of that. Life was rough, and someone would have said, this is it, I'm done. Life has not been fair. This is all I have. But you turned it around. There was some compelling desire, I'd imagine, that caused you to face what you're going through and decide to change that. What was it? What was it like? What was that driving force that caused you to want to make something better out of life, Chris?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I guess part of me wants to answer it in this way, and that I've always had this strange kind of a knowing that things happen for a reason,
Mm-hmm.
And you don't always get to know what that reason is at the time. Sometimes you do. A lot of times you'll get a lesson out of a failure, or something didn't turn out the way you wanted it to, then you'll realize why it didn't work out, and you'll see the lesson as clear as day. But then other times, you don't get to learn that. You don't get to know what that reason is right away, and sometimes it'll take you years to figure out why something happened. And I've always had this thing in my mind that said, one thing always leads to another, and isn't it strange how I got to point A only because I was already at point X, and I was only at point X because of point Y. So I always traced back why things were happening to me at a particular time based on the prior events. And I always thought that was strange. And so, I started thinking, okay, well, if that is true, then that probably is true for just about every occurrence that's ever happened to me or anybody. So I started digging through some of these older things going, what is it why did that happen? Right? Why? It wasn't my fault, or I didn't deserve it, or, I didn't, this isn't something I intended. I mean, why did it happen? What good could come from it? And so I found through my digging that there's always some little nugget. Maybe it's not a lesson or whatnot, but maybe it's somebody that you met, during that time that you would call a failure, or maybe it's a book that you read because you were fired from your job, and that book inspired you to do something great. There's always some little thing like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that, and I've always, that's one answer. And I guess the other answer is I've always had a really strong ambition to succeed, no matter what the circumstance. So kind of a long answer there.
Yeah.
But
yeah, but this is good. I mean, was there any point in time, Chris, when you blamed yourself for all the things that were happening? Because people go through that. They blame themselves, or they blame other people for their woes, and also that's one thing that keeps them did you experience any of that? Did you at any point, like, did you blame yourself? I mean, I know the answer to that, but, oh, I think I know the answer to that, but I'll let you answer it.
Yeah, I think yes. To answer your question, yes, there was times when I blamed myself. Oh, I shouldn't have been there at that time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Maybe I should have been a better 2-year-old, or maybe I should have kept the door locked that time at my establishment when the time I got robbed. Yeah, you try to blame yourself for a lot of things like that, and that actually kind of makes me think. A lot of people are stuck in this, blame game.
Mm-hmm,
They
mm-hmm.
have this victim mentality, right?
Yes.
So, and it really does hold people back. It's awful, And when you have this victim mentality, you tend to not take responsibility for anything, you know, whether it was your fault or wasn't your fault, and not everything bad that happens is your fault. And so you don't have to take uh, the blame for it, but you do have to take responsibility for how you react to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. So that's something I've learned along the way is you got to take responsibility for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. How about the part, Chris, that or the driving force behind putting into a book? I know you mentioned that you discussed this with your wife and giving the experience that you went through. You thought it would be good to capture this or to help other people. Vulnerability is one big thing, right? Especially for us men, we don't like to be vulnerable because we want to position ourselves as. But I've come to believe that there is no powerful story or there is no powerful way to influence another person than letting them into your space, so to speak, or sharing some of the struggles or failures or disasters, as you rightly put it. What was it? How easy was it to share, even as you're doing right now, right? I mean, sharing some of these deep, powerful experiences that you went through as a child, which I'm sure does bring back some painful memories every now and then. But how easy was that for you to kind of open up this way?
Well, it wasn't an easy decision, I'll tell you that. But since the decision's been made, I got to tell you, it's been very freeing and very liberating.
Mm-hmm.
It almost feels like I said, it's kind of like a skeleton in your closet that you don't want anybody to see. And because you feel some kind of blame on yourself for having that skeleton, but if you're able to let the skeleton out, it's a very freeing feeling. It really is. So I also knew that was just a side effect of it, the being freeing and liberating feeling. The main reason that I wanted to do these things and talk about these dark secrets or whatnot was that I wanted to be able to help people, right? And if I can show through my example that I have been through something horrific, but I was able to make it out okay. I'm just a regular guy from the Bay Area, California. I'm not super smart or super artistic or, I'm not super lucky or anything like that. I'm just a regular guy that tries to see the good in things and has a drive to be successful. So I wanted to share that with people. And if it helps by relaying my story about certain things, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chris, like your bio said, you became. I mean, you sold over $100 million, or since 2013, and you were named in the top 1% for Las Vegas Realty, and that's a huge accomplishment, Chris. Are there what lessons would you attribute, or what life lessons would you say kind of helped you to reach that notoriety, if I can put it that way?
Uh, you know, One of the crazy things, and this is another reflection of kind of what we were just talking about, Fred, and that is, I stumbled into the real estate business.
Mm,
This wasn't something I had ever planned on getting into. It wasn't a passion of mine, or you know, I I had bought one house, my first house back in I think 2006 or something. That was my only experience with real estate. I had no intention or plans of getting into it, and it just so happened the woman I was seeing at the time, her and I had a weight loss clinic here in town. I was in the fitness industry for about 7 years prior to real estate. And one of our clients, he had a mental health services company where he had to house about 200 individuals in rental homes here in Las Vegas. And, we get to talking, we become friends after he's been working with us for a while. And he says, Chris, you know what? I really don't like my property manager. Why don't you get your real estate license and become a property manager? I've already got 50 houses that I'm renting right now, and you can walk right into a gravy job. And I said, cool, I'm doing it. Let's do it. I got my license, and about 3 months into it, I hated the business, hated it, absolutely despised it. But I thought, you know what? I've got my license. I went through all this. I shoveled out, about $2,000, which was, more than I comfortably had at the time to get my license. And I said, I'm going to make something of this, so it was an opportunity. It wasn't a passion. It wasn't my life's ambition or my goal to be in real estate and sell $100 million. It was just an opportunity that came. And it came because I was ready and open and willing to look around me to see the opportunities. The weight loss clinic that we had where I met him failed. We went out of business in less than a year. And I could have saw that and said, you know what, that's a failure. It's just another chalk one up to the failure board. There it is. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But without that weight loss clinic, I never would have met this guy, never would have got my license, and never would have been in this position. Mm-hmm. So it's really about just, for me, keeping your eyes open to opportunities that are out there. And that's what happened there.
Yeah. Chris, you touch on some powerful points there, and things that I have experienced myself along my own journey of life, where there are certain things that happen to us in life that we consider, bad, right? Whether we're there, these are just nightmares, but oftentimes they're cues, or they're stepping stones that lead us to where we want to be. And you're right that not getting what you want in life is exactly what you need sometimes in life. Can you elaborate on that a little? Because I think there's a lot of truth there, Chris.
Yeah, kind of like what we were just alluding to there. Having something that could easily be considered a failure, mm-hmm. turns into something else. And I can look back, and I'm sure that you can too, and I'm sure a lot of your audience can do the same thing right now. Look back over the course of your life and find something that you thought was a failure or a disaster or a setback or a mistake or whatever, and find something that came out of that would not have come out of that had you not gone through that. Mm-hmm. And you will see that there's a pattern. It happens almost every single time if you're willing to look at it that way, right? And so that's what it really is, in my opinion, it's kind of reframing what it means to you to have a failure or a setback or a mistake. I don't see a failure, and people say, oh, there's no such thing as failure. Yes, there is. There's all kinds of things that you're probably going to fail in some way or another at. Whatever you have planned right now is not going to turn out exactly like you think it is. There's going to be some little twist or turn, and you have a good chance of failing, but that's okay. That's perfectly fine, because something else good can come from that, right? So it's a lot to look at, but I believe that everybody has that in their history, and if you look back hard enough, you'll see it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I can share a classic example of this was years ago. I'd applied for this job that I thought was the right fit, and was expecting to get a call from the recruiter that I'd gotten the job, and days went by, I never heard anything. And then later on, I heard that, I wasn't selected for the position, and it was disappointing, because I'd given my all, and I thought this was it. And so after a few days of stewing over it, I just, kind of let it go, and we're watching the news one time, craze, when a few days after that, actually about a week or so, when this company's staff had gone to work one morning without any advanced warning or anything. They got to the entrance, and the company had shut down. And if I'd gotten the job that I thought I deserved, or that I wanted, I would have been part of this group of people who didn't end up having a job. And so I say that, and every now and then it takes my mind back to some of the things that we fight against so much in life, that we think we want, not knowing that these may very well be, God's way of delivering us, or leading us to something better. And I think there's a saying that sometimes when doors close in life, we keep staring so much at that closed door that we miss out on the other, open doors. And I think this is a classic example. So this is really, so if you had hadn't, like you rightly said, right, if it wasn't for that weight business, weight clinic or something, you wouldn't have met this guy and it wouldn't have brought you where you are. But these are all, I think, stepping stones, as you will, or the pathways through life. They're not fun. I mean, sometimes we go through the valleys of the shadows, we go through the dark alleys, we go through those difficult moments, but these are all part of that grand design, if you will. So I think there's a powerful lesson there. What are the lessons, Chris, do you speak about in the book that brought you where you are today?
Yeah, I think a couple of them are, not getting what you want is exactly what you need, right? And, I would encourage people, our conversation now almost seems like, well, you shouldn't chase your dreams because they're not going to happen anyways, right? But that's not true. I mean, you should chase your dreams. I mean, you absolutely should, because you don't want to get down to the end of your time limit and have a regret about not chasing the dream. So chase your dream, right? But don't be surprised if your dream turns into something slightly different than what you set out for in the first place. So that's one of the lessons that I've learned, and I try to convey in the book is pursue your dreams, but be open to the possibility that it might not work out, and that's okay. And if it doesn't work out, you're going to have some other experience along that path that will lead you down a new path that might take you to where you really wanted to go. Right. I can give an example from the book. I interviewed about 7 or 8 different entrepreneurs, people from all over the country. And one of them, her name is Janice, she had built up and established 3 nail salons in casinos here in Las Vegas, which is a pretty hard thing to do. Get a store in a casino, that's a pretty big deal. So she had 3 of those, and it took up all of her time. This was her dream. I want to have nail salons, and I can't live them in a casino. Now I have 3 of them. I'm living my dream, right? But it took up so much of her time. She was there 80, 100 hours a week or whatnot. And the bills, were so over the top that it was just too much for her. And so she closed the stores. It was a huge disappointment, a massive setback, a failure, if you will, on a grand scale. But it forced her to find something else to do. So she went back to her YouTube videos, which she had been doing before that. And now she has a online boutique where she sells all sorts of, women's products and things like that. But now she gets to be with her family all that time. Now she works from home. So what it is that she really wanted, she wanted to be successful, but she wanted to also spend that quality time with her family. So she was not going to have that at the nail salons in the casino. So because of that failure, the universe or God said, no. I'm not going to give you these nail salons in the casino because you'll never see your family. We're not going down that road. The universe or God said, hey, I'm going to make this a failure. However, I'm going to make you a success at something else, and you can see your family. Prime example of don't ever think that what you got set out to do is going to turn out exactly like you planned.
Yeah. I love that. And I'm not sure whether that's what you call the failure paradox, but that's also another lesson there. How to escape from this unhealthy and all too common mindset once and for all. But can you describe that failure paradox, Chris, that you talk about, or that you speak about in your from your book?
Absolutely, yeah. So the paradox of failure to me means that failure is a requirement of success, right? So. And I can take this from the book. I say that the only way to completely eliminate failure is to either lower your definition of success or to never try anything in which failure is a remote possibility. But I've also thought to myself, you know what? Lowering your definition of success would be a failure to dream big. So that's a failure. And never trying anything where failure is a possibility would also be considered a failure, a failure to try, to grow, and to be more. So, I always like to refer to the Thomas Edison story. He failed 10,000 times at building a light bulb, and he said, "I haven't failed 10,000 times. I've successfully figured out 10,000 ways that will not work."
Yeah.
I mean, Fred, can you imagine trying anything 10,000 times? I mean, 100 is a lot for most people. That would
Yeah,
be a lot.
yeah, yeah,
10,000
yeah,
times. But he did it. And now he's known as the guy who invented
yeah,
the light bulb.
yeah. And I wonder how many of us go through life and we quit just at the point where if we had tried one more time, we probably would have met with success. Right? But like, you talk about some resilience, talk about determination, talk about grit that kept him going 10 times. And there's several others. Colonel Sanders, one of them, at KFC, he tried to think over, 1,009 or so times before he got someone to buy his chicken recipe. And now, KFC. And there's so many other lessons of successful people who often we see them, we see the success, and we don't know, or we often forget to think about how much they put into their work to get them to where they are. Chris, you also talk about why it's important. You talk about self-care, and I think if there's any time to talk about self-care, right, it's now. Right, you talk about the fact that it's so important to slow down with self-care to jumpstart a stronger second act. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I believe you got to take time for yourself. We all seem to be on this fast track.
Mm-hmm.
We've all got these places that we want to get to. And of course, we want to get to them as fast as possible. Right. So it's so important. And it's like a recharge. You have to take time. You have to spend time with your family, or, spend time doing some things that you enjoy, you know, whether it's playing with the dogs, or, laying down for a 20-minute meditation, or, whatever it is. Take some time out for yourself, and just let the worries of the world go for just a little while. They'll still be there. You'll have plenty to worry about tomorrow. Believe me, they're not going anywhere. But yeah, taking time out for yourself really seems to recharge me. Even if it's just a few minutes every day. I think it's important to avoid burning out. So take time for oneself.
Yeah, yeah. And you also talk about swallowing that bad pride, which oftentimes gets us into trouble, right? I mean, and I think pride is one of those things people tell you, yeah, you gotta be proud, you gotta be proud of yourself, you gotta go after it and be comfortable. But then there is a point to where that pride can get us into trouble. How do we find that balance, you think, Chris?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of points to that, Fred, about bad pride. And one of those is, being able to ask somebody for help, right? Just as you and I were speaking, I think before the show, especially as men, in this society, we got to be the ones that
Mm-hmm.
shoulder the burden and carry the load, and, bring home the bacon and do everything a man's supposed to do. And a lot of times we want to do that by ourselves, because we're too full of pride to say, hey, I might need some help here. And there's nothing wrong with asking for help, you know. In fact, it's very helpful. My wife can tell you. I mean, I'll ask her for help if I need help with something, and she'll be very flattered by that. Hey, can you show me how to do this on the computer? Oh, that's so cool. But I'm not just about little mundane household stuff, but if you wanted to be more successful in business, or you wanted to learn a new skill or something like that, find somebody that knows it and ask them to help you. There's nothing wrong with that. And by the same token, you should be ready and willing and on the lookout for people who might need your help. You can pay it forward. If you can provide somebody with a little bit of an assistance or a leg up somehow, hey, that's only going to work in your favor. Another part of bad pride, Fred, when we kind of touched on this, is that victim mentality thing. Sometimes the ego gets in the way, and we're so proud that we don't ever want to be wrong. It takes a big man or a big person, a big woman, to admit when they're wrong. Hey, I was wrong about that. That was my fault. I shouldn't have done that. I take responsibility for that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a form of bad pride. If you can't do that, if you're blaming someone else for something that clearly was your fault, that's bad pride too. So yeah, taking a step back and just trying to be a good person, and not being afraid to ask for help, and not being able to admit when you're wrong.
Yeah, I love that. Which goes completely contrary to what we think and know, right? As it's got to be that macho, it's got to be all that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that show of force. But Chris, one thing I like to ask my special guests is this quintessential question, right? What defines them? And I ask this question, Chris, because I think we all go through life, and there's defining moment that we all face, or we all experience. It was that one moment that transformed your life, or taught you a profound lesson, or brought about a specific change in life. And if I were to ask you that question, Chris, as you kind of reflect back on all the things, the journey, of life. What would you say, Chris, is that one defining moment, or that one thing that defines you?
Well, I'd like to think that I, could be maybe known as the guy who's been through the storm, and this is not to say that everybody else hasn't. We all certainly have. But to get through the storm and battle and do the right thing and try to get to the other side, I think is a very strong personality trait. I'd like to think that I have that. I'd also like to be, somebody that can help other people see that light in themselves. Show them that if I can do this, you can do it too. So other than that, just being a good husband, being a good father, doing the right thing, having integrity, being a man of my word, just being a good human, treating other people as you want to be treated.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. Because this is where I'll let you speak to that one person or people who are watching us, listening to us. It could be someone who may be going through some challenging time, and who doesn't, right? But it's probably someone who's stuck, or someone who's just at a crossroads, not sure, how life's going to end up. Maybe they're at a point where they're about to give up, or may have already given up on life because of one bad event, and thinking that there's really nothing left to live for. And I want you to feel led to speak to that person as you feel. Just speak those. Just talk to that person. Just address that person, and just speak into their lives, whatever you feel you need to talk to. You need to speak to them about.
Absolutely. So I know what you're going through right now. I was there myself. I was on the verge of the unthinkable, and there is light at the end of the tunnel. No matter how many times life has kicked your butt so far, it doesn't have to stay that way, and it's only going to stay that way if you let it stay that way. You can pull yourself out of this. There's other people around you that love you and that are willing to help you. Ask for help. Reach that hand out and ask for the help. And just know that, you're going through a dark time right now, but something good is going to come from this. You're going to learn something, or something will come in a positive way later on down the road from this time right now. So don't ever give up. And just know that there's a lot of people out there that are pulling for you right now.
Chris, where can our listeners find your book?
So the book, Disasters and Dreams, is available anywhere you like to buy books, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You can head over to my website, also chrispatrick.net. There's all the links to buy the books there. There's also links to my social media and all my blogs. You can sign up for my newsletter and be the first to receive the blogs. Oh, Fred, we've also got a cool new free download there. It's called From Roadblock to Rockstar. Smash the 10 mental roadblocks holding you back from rockstar status. So that is a free download at chrispatrick.net. You can hop on over there and grab that, and I hope to see you there.
And these are powerful lessons from the person who's lived the life. This is not theory. This is real practical stuff. And if Chris was able to do it, was able to overcome some of the challenges, then we can too, right? We can too. We just need to, like I often say, they say experience is the best teacher, but I disagree. I think learning from other people's experience is the best teacher. Why go through that if you can learn some of the valuable lessons? And that's why we do this podcast. That's why we have guests who come on here week after week with very powerful stories and life lessons of things that they were able to get through. And so, Chris, I want to thank you so much for sharing. And Disasters to Dreams, a great guide to finding success in the face of failure. And if there's one thing, Chris, amongst others, that has stuck with me, it is the fact that not getting what you want in life is exactly what you need sometimes. I trust that our viewers have gotten something significant out of this. I have. And if you have, we ask you to check out or subscribe to our podcast page on iTunes. Leave us a positive feedback, leave us a review. That's really what keeps this growing. We don't monetize this. We don't make money out of this. I don't get paid for what I do. The greatest satisfaction I get out of this is the fact that someone's life is touched, and I trust that you share this mission and personal value of mine, and that's why we keep doing this week after week. So again, thank you, Chris, for coming on, and to you, our listeners, for tuning in. And until next time, stay well.